A lost prophecy, a forgotten warrior, and a truth buried for 10,000 years. When ruthless warlords invaded, a young hunter was forced into a battle he never asked for. But the real shock, the gods they worshipped weren't gods at all. What really happened in 10,000 BC? Stay tuned, because history was never what it seemed. In the distant past, around 10,000 BC, a resilient tribe known as the Igali struggled to survive as their primary source of sustenance. Mammoths became increasingly scarce. Every day, their hunters ventured farther than before, seeking food, bones, and fur essential for their survival. One fateful evening, they returned not just with meager findings, but with an orphaned girl named Evelet. She had been discovered clinging to the lifeless body of her mother, her piercing blue eyes mesmerizing the hunters, for never before had they seen such a sight. Upon their return, the tribe's revered shaman, the Old Mother, entered a trance, channeling the voices of the spirits. Through divine prophecy, she foretold the arrival of four-legged demons that would descend upon their valley on the day of the tribe's final great hunt. From this hunt, a mighty warrior would emerge, one destined to claim Evelet as his partner and lead their people toward an era of prosperity, free from hunger. However, the tribe's leader dismissed the prophecy, choosing instead to seek alternative ways to secure sustenance for his people rather than relying on the uncertain fate of a distant hunt. Before departing on his quest, the chief entrusted his closest companion, Tik-Tik, with his sacred white spear, tasking him with the protection of his son, Lai. In the chief's absence, Lai became the target of ridicule from the other boys, who saw his father's departure as an act of cowardice. Tik-Tik, ever the guardian, intervened to quell their taunts, reminding them of the former chief's honor. As the days passed, Lai withdrew into solitude, a feeling Evelet deeply understood, having lost her own people to the four-legged demons. Moved by her kindness, Lai made a solemn vow never to let her be alone again. As the years rolled on, Lai and Evelet's bond deepened, blossoming into love. When the long-awaited final hunt was upon them, a young warrior, Boku, informed Lai that the Old Mother was certain that this was the day the prophecy would come true. Many believed that the strongest warrior, Karen, would emerge victorious and claim Evelet as his own. A conversation between Lai and Evelet revealed her concern that Karen was too formidable to defeat. She pleaded with Lai to flee with her, but he refused to run, unlike his father, vowing instead to win the hunt and prove himself. At that moment, Boku sounded the alarm. The mammoths had arrived. Tik-Tik reminded the hunters of the sacred rule. Whoever felled a mammoth would earn the white spear and be named the next chief. The hunters approached the mammoth herd with great caution. Tik-Tik was the first to spot the lead beast, roaring to startle it into movement. As the others followed his lead, the mammoths began to flee, prompting the hunters to pursue them. A particularly massive mammoth attempted to squeeze through a narrow pass, but became ensnared in a net. Karen hurled his spear, yet his aim faltered. Missing its mark, the beast thrashed wildly, freeing itself from the net. Tik-Tik ordered the hunters to release their hold, recognizing the creature's sheer strength. Unluckily, Lai's hand became entangled in the net, and before he could escape, he was dragged away by the colossal animal. Eventually, the net caught on jagged rocks, forcing the mammoth to a halt. Furious and in pain, the beast turned its wrath upon Lai. He dodged its frenzied attacks and attempted to drive his spear into it, only to enrage the creature further. Desperate, he spotted another spear lodged between the rocks. He raced toward it, but before he could retrieve it, the charging mammoth inadvertently impaled itself upon the weapon. The force drove the spear deep into its heart, and with a final, thunderous collapse, the beast fell, trapping Lai beneath it. The tribe rushed to his aid, awestruck by his feat. No warrior had ever single-handedly slain a mammoth. The Old Mother bestowed upon him the white spear and Evelet's hand in marriage. That night, the tribe feasted in celebration, yet Lai found himself burdened with guilt. His triumph had been an accident. Seeking guidance, he turned to Tik-Tik, confessing that deception was not in his nature, but fearing the loss of Evelett. Tik-Tik reminded him that the Igali did not claim honor through falsehoods. Resolving to stay true to himself, Lai returned the spear, explaining to Evelett that, though he loved her, he could not accept what he had not rightfully earned. Misinterpreting his gesture as a rejection of their future together, Evelett departed in sorrow. The next morning, disaster struck. The four-legged demons arrived, not mythical creatures, but mounted warriors on horseback. The invaders ruthlessly seized the strongest members of the tribe, slaughtering those who resisted. Boku, hidden within a hut, bore witness as his mother fell at the hands of their brutal leader, One Eye. Lai, who had spent the night alone, awoke to the sounds of terror and rushed to intervene, but Tik-Tik restrained him, knowing they stood no chance against the mounted warriors. Warlord, the leader of the raiders, took a special interest in Evelett, claiming her as his own. As the captives were led away, the surviving tribe members tended to their shattered home. Determined to rescue their people, Lai resolved to track the raiders. Tik-Tik and Karen agreed to join him, but when Boku insisted on coming along, they refused. He was still a child. However, unwilling to be left behind, Boku secretly followed them. Along the journey, they found remnants of a campfire and a broken piece of Evelett's necklace, confirming that they were on the right path. But as they pressed forward, an unforgiving snowstorm struck. The old mother, spiritually attuned to their journey, felt the cold gripping their souls. When the storm finally relented, they awoke to a grim realization. The snow had erased all traces of the rider's path. Meanwhile, Evelett had been subtly dropping pieces of her necklace as a trail. When Warlord discovered her deception, he cruelly lashed her hands, attempting to crush her spirit. Later, the hunters stumbled upon one of these blood-stained fragments. Fearing the worst, Lai pressed onward. Soon, they noticed flocks of birds fleeing the forest, an ominous sign that the raiders had passed through. The jungle was teeming with danger, and a mysterious predator dragged one of the raiders into the shadows. In response, Warlord lashed out at his captives, demanding they quicken their pace. The hunters later discovered a piece of the missing raider's armor, confirming their suspicions. Lai, eager to strike, was advised by Tik-Tik to wait. Rushing in without a plan would mean certain failure. That night, Evelett was attacked by One Eye, only to be saved by Lai. Chaos erupted as the horses panicked, allowing Lai and Evelett to free their fellow captives. However, One Eye gave chase, and during the escape, Karen was captured. Suddenly, monstrous terror birds swooped in, attacking both captors and captives alike. Boku sought refuge in a tree while Tik-Tik, injured, fought to protect himself. Lai swore to return for Evelett before leading the creatures away. Using his agility and wits, he outmaneuvered the beasts, striking one down with a bamboo spear before returning to his fallen mentor. With Tik-Tik gravely wounded, Lai built a makeshift stretcher, carrying him across the vast savanna. Each night, they stopped only to rest and eat. When Lai stumbled into a pit trap, he awoke to find himself face-to-face with a saber-toothed tiger. Instead of attacking, the great beast acknowledged Lai's courage and spared his life. Their journey led them to a ruined village, where they were captured by another tribe, only for the tiger to reappear. Recognizing the bond between Lai and the beast, the villagers, led by Nakudu, laid down their weapons. Nakudu revealed that he had once encountered a man much like Lai, confirming that his father had traveled this very land. Lai's heart burned with questions. He needed to know the truth about his father, only to learn the devastating news. His father, too, had been taken by the ruthless raiders, the very ones who enslaved entire tribes. No soul had ever escaped their grasp. Just as despair threatened to take hold, Nakudu led Lai to a hidden chamber deep within the village. Ancient paintings covered the walls, telling of a prophecy, one foretelling the rise of a warrior who could speak with the great tiger and lead his people to freedom. It was undeniable. The prophecy spoke of Lai. Yet, doubt crept into Lai's mind. He did not feel ready to lead. His hands trembled with uncertainty. Sensing his turmoil, Tik-Tik, his mentor, offered reassurance. He revealed the truth about Lai's father, not as a deserter, but as a man who had left in search of a better life for the tribe. Now, it was Lai's decision. Would he embrace his destiny or turn away from it? The following dawn, a messenger arrived with grim news. The raiders had attacked other tribes as well. Tik-Tik, determined to act, urged immediate pursuit. Nakudu, understanding the urgency, ordered his warriors to prepare for the journey. As the villagers bid farewell to their loved ones, Lai noticed Nakudu standing alone. The elder warrior revealed his tragic past. The raiders had slain his wife and stolen his son, Tudu. Meanwhile, Tudu, now a captive, found solace in a newfound friendship with Baku, another prisoner. Their bond was tested when a cruel warrior, Wanai, attempted to force Baku to drink, leading to a violent struggle. As Wanai sought to punish the boy, Evelet intervened, persuading the warlord to spare him. The warlord, captivated by Evelet, relented, striking Wanai instead. The humiliated warrior simmered with rage, vowing revenge. Back at the village, Lai and his warriors set out, only to be met with an astonishing sight. Dozens of tribes had gathered, drawn by whispers of the prophesied leader's arrival. With each passing day, more warriors joined the growing army, marching ceaselessly toward their destiny. At last, they reached the river, where they spotted the raiders ferrying their captives away on boats. Desperate, Lai called out to Evelet. Hearing his voice, she turned to the others, her eyes filled with hope. Lai is coming for us, she whispered. The children, filled with renewed faith, cheered, only to be silenced by their captors. The tribes faced an impasse. They could not pursue the boats, and the only path forward lay through the unforgiving desert. Legends spoke of the Eye of the Snake, where the captives would be taken, a place said to rest beneath the unmoving sun and the moonless sky. Though many doubted they could endure the journey, Lai refused to surrender. He vowed to find the Eye of the Snake, and so they pressed onward. Days passed. The scorching sun drained their strength, and uncertainty gnawed at their spirits. Then, as Lai gazed upon the night sky, realization dawned. The Eye of the Snake was none other than the North Star, a guiding light through the darkness. From that moment, they marched beneath the cover of night, following the celestial beacon. Back at the village, the old mother sat in silence, awaiting the moment her purpose would be fulfilled. At long last, the tribes arrived at their enemy's stronghold, the Mountain of the Gods. Before them stood an awe-inspiring yet terrifying sight, a massive pyramid, its construction forced upon enslaved warriors and captured mammoths. The oppressors wielded absolute power, enforcing submission through brutal means. Whenever the sacred horn sounded, all were forced to kneel before the self-proclaimed deity, the Almighty. That very day, the Almighty, displeased with the slow progress, ordered a sacrifice. Without hesitation, a captive was cast from the pyramid's heights, his life stolen in an instant. Hidden in the shadows, Lai despaired. Even with the combined strength of the gathered tribes, they were outnumbered. But Tik-Tik, ever the strategist, pointed out the key to victory, the slaves. If they could inspire them to rise, their army would swell tenfold. Under the cover of darkness, Lai and Nakudu infiltrated the slave quarters. Nakudu was overcome with emotion as he reunited with his son, Tudu. Meanwhile, Lai found Baku, desperate to know if Evelet was safe. He learned that she, along with the other women, had been taken elsewhere. Karen, another warrior, bore no resentment for being captured. He believed in the prophecy and swore to follow Lai to the very end. Yet not all captives shared this belief. A skeptical slave dismissed Lai as just another warrior, arguing that no amount of weapons could unalive a god. Nakudu silenced the doubts with a bold proclamation. Lai possessed the power to speak with tigers. This revelation led them to a blind elder, hidden deep underground. The elder had once served a god but had since escaped, and he knew the one thing the Almighty feared: the mark of the hunter, a symbol representing the brightest star in the heavens. Without this mark, Lai could not defeat him. Before they could learn more, the sound of approaching guards forced them to flee. Just before escaping, Lai recognized the elder's bracelet. It belonged to his father. The truth was bittersweet. Lai's father had saved the elder's life, but he had perished in the process. As Lai and Nakudu returned to their army, danger followed. Guards had discovered their presence. The tribesmen prepared for battle, but before they could act, Tik-Tik emerged. The seasoned warrior took on the enemy alone, cutting them down with unmatched skill. Yet one of the guards feigned death, striking Tik-Tik when his back was turned. Lai rushed to his mentor's side, pleading for him to stay. The slaves still refused to fight, bound by their own prophecy. With a weak yet knowing smile, Tik-Tik whispered, "Prophecies wear many faces," before pressing the white spear into Lai's hands. Then he drew his final breath. Elsewhere, Evelett was taken to the warlord's chamber, but before he could act, the priests interrupted. Warlord was arrested for stealing a slave from the Almighty. Betrayed by One Eye, he had no choice but to submit. The priest seized Evelett's hand. Discovering her scars bore the mark of the hunter. The Almighty, upon learning this, flew into a rage. Lai, now burdened with grief, buried Tik-Tik with reverence. Nakudu reminded him that his father would have wanted him to be a leader. Accepting his destiny, Lai took up the white spear and delivered a speech that ignited the spirits of his people. They would fight, not as scattered tribes, but as one. At sunrise, the final battle began. The tribes buried their weapons beneath the sand and disguised themselves as slaves. Lai whispered to Baku, "Today, you are a hunter." Word of the coming uprising spread. Meanwhile, Evelett and Warlord were brought before the Almighty. Warlord, now powerless, was brutally whipped. The priests warned their ruler. An army of spear-wielding warriors approached. At the slave quarters, Lai and Karen released the mammoth leader, setting Baku and Tudu on their mission. The children freed the beasts, and with a single command, Lai launched the attack. Karen fought valiantly against the guards, unaliving himself for the cause. Overcome with fury, Lai roared at the mammoths, driving them into a frenzied stampede that crushed their oppressors beneath their massive feet. Inspired, the slaves revolted. In a desperate bid to regain control, the Almighty ordered Evelett's execution to break their morale. Lai, seeing her in danger, halted the fight. As the horn sounded, the slaves kneeled in fear. The Almighty, through his priest, offered a deal. Lai could leave with his own people, but the rest belonged to the gods. Lai refused. Instead, he hurled the white spear, striking the Almighty dead. He was no god, Lai declared. He was only a man. The revelation shattered the illusion of divine power. The slaves, emboldened, fought with newfound strength. Nakudu avenged his son's capture, slaying One Eye. As Warlord fled with Evelett, she turned his own weapon against him, but before she could escape, he loosed an arrow, striking her down. Grief consumed Lai as he avenged her, slaying Warlord. Overcome with sorrow, he sought the mammoths for a merciful end, but at that moment, the old mother breathed her last, and Evelett's life was restored. With the battle won, the tribes returned home. Nakudu gifted Lai seeds from his father, seeds that would nourish their people for generations. The prophecy had been fulfilled. Lai had become the leader his people needed. The legend of Lai was forged in fire, loss, and destiny. But what do you think? Was it fate? Or was it the choices he made that led him to victory? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an epic tale. And if you're craving more legendary stories, check out these videos on your screen now. See you in the next one.